One skill I think everyone should know how to do is make short crust pastry because it's simple and it just tastes so much better. So here's a really quick snapshot on what you need to know. First, it all starts with a quality flour. I'm using a plain flour, but this one in particular is fantastic for cakes, biscuits and flaky pastry. And the reason it's so great is because it's a soft, low protein flour. So I've got 500 grams of my plain flour. I add a pinch of salt, and in general, we say half the fat to flour. So I've got 250 grams of cold butter. Now, yes, you can do this in the food processor, or you can do it by hand. I actually love to do it by hand if I've got a bit more time up my sleeve because it's actually quite therapeutic. And the aim here is to have really cold butter and use the tips of your fingers just to squish the butter into the flour just like this. At the beginning it may look slightly tedious, but you keep working that flour in, and as that butter melts, then you'll see that it starts to form into a dough. Now at this stage, to bring it all together, you add a splash of icy water, and you can take it even further and add an egg yolk, and that makes it extra rich. Once you've made a ball of dough, this is what it's going to look like, and it needs to rest. The protein in the flour needs to rest. So wrap it up in some cling film and then into the fridge. In fact, you can take it even further and freeze this, so you have it on standby when you want to make your favorite tart. Now the next part is blind baking. This is another great technique to know at home. So I've rolled out my pastry. There it is, looking quite beautiful. I've got my tart tin over here, and I'm just going to take a rolling pin and just roll that pastry onto the rolling pin. This is just the easiest way to transfer it to our tin. Place it into the tin, and then just press it into the sides. And if there are a few little holes, it doesn't matter. You can just always patch it up. And it's always nice to have a little bit of flour on your hands just to make sure it's not sticky. I press down with the palm of my hand just to take away the excess pastry. Always dock your pastry so it stays quite flat on the bottom, and docking just means using a fork just to press into it like so. And if your recipe requires the blind bake, well, this is how you do it. Preheat your oven to 190. Grab yourself a bit of baking paper, scrunch that up. It just makes it more pliable. And then into the base of the tart. So we need to keep the base of this tart flat while it bakes in the oven. So just some rice. You could also use some dried beans. In that goes. Spread it all the way around into the sides, and then that goes into the oven. You want to cook it with the rice for about 20 minutes. Take that out and then cook it for a further 15 minutes, and this is what you get, the most beautiful tart casing, and then it's ready to cook. By doing this blind bake, it ensures you never ever get a soggy base on your tart or quiche. So I like to do this particularly when I'm making sweet tarts like a strawberry and custard tart. So I'm going to fill this up with some custard. This one's homemade, and I've got plenty of recipes for that on our website. But spread that out, and to make it look extra special, some fresh strawberries on the top. Just scatter them to make it look quite organic. And that is a fantastic tart made using homemade short crust pastry.